Yo, welcome. We're looking at some shocking traffic differences and driving differences between the EU and the US. Of course, this is coming from one person's perspective. And, these might be a little broad. The EU, very diverse. US, very diverse, and so forth. But take them with a grain of salt. I think this is going to be pretty interesting. We will be looking at supposedly 21 differences, though we're going to only look at some of them. If you want to watch the whole thing, they will be linked down below. And this is from a channel called Traveler Guy. Make sure to check them out. So let's go ahead and jump right in. Here we go.
Hi guys. I spent more than 2 weeks on the West Coast last year, and I was shocked by many things which are very different from Europe. I know these comparisons are not true for all part of the US and all part of Europe, but you can find these stereotypes in many places. Number 1. Unlike in Europe, public transport networks are not so great in the US.
True.
The lines are not so extensive and the buses, trains run less frequently.
Yeah.
Probably that is the reason why old or very poor people are using it. They can't drive a car or not afford one. In Europe, all level of the society is using public transport.
Yeah.
From young to old, from poor to rich, as this is the fastest way to commute within the city.
Yeah, that right there is just comes to mind as one I've heard before. But that one is so striking, the difference, right? Everyone who's anyone can take public transport and will take public transport, mostly, in most places in Europe. And that's just, it's weird in the U.S. because it is looked down upon here. Isn't that bizarre? Most people just want to drive. And if they have the means, they have a car or multiple cars and they drive everywhere. I personally, I'll admit it, I drive everywhere. I can't remember the last time I took a bus somewhere. There was a time when I was younger, I did take trains. So, Amtrak, right? I took trains throughout the Chicago area. But may I mention, for a U.S. standard, Chicago has pretty good, public transport when it comes to buses, trains, and so forth. But then again, I'm sure most Europeans would think it's crap. I'm not sure if it's that bad or what. But for U.S. standards, it's one of the better cities, one of the better, greater areas for public transport. But yeah, in the U.S., it's just a weird thing, and it is looked down upon. And I don't know, it's bizarre. But our cities are modern, and to be quite frank, they're just set up for long drives. It's how it works here.
Unfortunately, most U.S. cities were built after the introduction of the automobile.
Yeah.
Giving limited to no chance spreading to the public transport networks within the city. The biggest problem is that half of the American population lives in the suburbs. Here, the population density is relatively low, and therefore public transport cannot serve very well these areas.
Yeah.
Let's take a look at the map and compare Phoenix and Barcelona.
This is going to be interesting because even for U.S. standards, you have to understand Phoenix. I've been there many times. Phoenix is unbelievably huge. It is sprawling. I feel the same way actually about Chicago. Chicago and Phoenix are both very good examples of ultimate sprawl. You have to understand that most cities, quite frankly, aren't this bad. Phoenix and Chicago are very extreme examples, but we'll still go with it. As you can see, this is all part of Phoenix. Sun City, Peoria, Glendale, Tempe, Mesa, Gilbert, Chandler. If you go from Chandler way down here all the way to Sun City, you're still in the Phoenix metro area. But I'm not kidding. From Chandler to Sun City, it's going to take you almost an hour to get there. Think about that. An hour away, and you're still in the same city, right? It's crazy how sprawling it is. It is just huge, right? And most European cities, I'm sure, are not going to be nowhere near as big and spread out as, your Phoenixes, your Chicagos. It's crazy.
Have a population around 1.5 million.
Right.
But if you check the area of Phoenix, it is spreading out in a 10 times larger space than Barcelona.
10 times, holy
So the only thing that could help spreading the public transport is urban development. People have to move to the city and leave the suburbs behind. This is part of another story. The car rental is cheaper and much easier than in Europe. There are no hidden fees. The second driver is free.
Yeah.
You don't even have to pay for extra mileage.
Yeah.
And debit cards are just as acceptable as credit cards.
Yeah, I will say I've had to rent a car in a couple different phases of my life, like quite often. And rental cars in the U.S., it's so easy. You get a lot of choices, and it's really easy. And most of the time, it's pretty cheap too. So I will say rental cars is a win in the U.S.
Some traffic rules which are very different from Europe. Now, I'm not comparing the UK with the US, but I focus on mainland Europe, where also right-hand drive traffic is used just as in America. One of these rules is turning right is generally allowed on a red light.
Yes.
I believe it is a great thing and helps the traffic flow more easily while it doesn't add additional danger to the process.
Yeah, I've always been shocked. I thought that was a thing throughout the world. And I remember starting this channel, I've learned over the years that turning right on red is not common in most countries. That shocks me. Everyone loves to rip on the U.S., but I think that's a win there, right? We do some things right. Turning right on red is awesome. It's very quick. It's very convenient. As long as you're careful, it's really never dangerous. I think it should be a given in traffic flow. Turning right on red when it's clear makes perfect sense. Why wait there and idle and waste emissions, waste time, waste gas? Just turn right, make sure it's clear once you're stopped, and go. It's awesome.
In Europe, you can turn on the red light only if there is an additional light which shows a green arrow pointing to the right. Number 4.
So it can happen in Europe, but only in certain instances. It's not like a general rule. Whereas here, you can turn right on red anywhere. Interesting.
On the other hand, turning left in the US is a nightmare.
That's true. That is true. If we're being honest, both sides, good and bad. Turning left is borderline dangerous. Not dangerous if you're of course very careful, as you should be, but it can be difficult. There's certain intersections that aren't set up correctly for it. Visibility can be rough. You have cars turning left across from you, and they're kind of in your way for seeing traffic coming at you that you have to yield to. Turning left in the U.S. can be difficult.
Designated left turn traffic lights are rare, and mostly you get solid green, which means you can expect traffic.
Dude, this little clip here, this guy skidded the tires. Listen to this. He went through a yellow arrow and skidded the tires. This guy's on freaking 2 wheels over here.
Designated left turn traffic lights are rare, and mostly you get solid green, which means you can expect traffic.
Yeah, that's not recommended at all.
From the opposite direction. I find this extremely dangerous, and also can block and slow the traffic. The next one is the interchanges. They, especially in the city, are so close to each other
that
nuts. Due to heavy traffic and
I always call it like the spaghetti network. You go in certain cities, especially like Milwaukee's really bad. There's just like a million of these things on top of each other. It's kind of crazy looking. It's like, whoa.
6-7 lanes, it is impossible to change routes. Many of them should be redesigned to be more user-friendly. Number 6. On the other hand, what I find particularly useful is the flashing red and yellow traffic lights.
Yeah.
In Europe, when the traffic light is not operating, there is only yellow flashing, and you have to rely on additional signs to decide who has the right of way. But in the US, red flashing is equivalent to a stop sign.
Yes.
While yellow flashing is a free to go. You just have to be cautious.
Yeah, yellow flashing, you can actually just roll through as long as you yield and make sure you can roll through it without stopping. Flashing red, as he said, treat it like a stop sign, come to a complete stop. And then when there's other people on, right, left, or forward, you treat it like a stop sign intersection. So everyone knows the rules there. Whoever stopped to your right, they have the right of way, and everyone waits their turn and goes. And yeah, it's like a stop sign. So it is kind of cool, although it's a rare occurrence.
This is something I would like to see to be implemented in the EU as well. No traffic lights, usually a simple stop sign can tell you whether you have a right of way or not. This is typically used in low traffic, low speed suburban areas. I find this traffic management extremely detrimental, as it stops the traffic every single intersection, which is not just annoying, but it raises pollution levels significantly.
Yes.
And in the US, you really actually have to stop. If all roads have stop signs and two cars arrive to the intersection, the go-through is mostly happening in a first-come, first-go basis. This is not the case in Europe. Of course, you can find some intersection with stop or yield signs.
Damn, where is this? This is gorgeous. You saw those towering mountains? Holy smokes.
Many of intersections are roundabouts, which is one of the best way of traffic management.
Yes, if you have been on my channel at all, or if you're new watching this video, just know I'm an American who is a huge fan of roundabouts. I have had videos on roundabouts before. I absolutely love them. There's only a couple states that use them extensively, like nearby Wisconsin does use roundabouts a lot for American standards. They're almost everywhere in every town, lots of intersections. I absolutely love roundabouts. A lot of Americans hate them. I don't know why. They just make more sense, and they're so much more smooth. They're faster. They're more efficient. I love roundabouts, and I would love if the U.S. had way more of them. The fact that a lot of countries, especially throughout Europe, use roundabouts more extensively, it just makes sense. So I'm a big fan of this, and I do admit roundabouts are better.
The
I love them.
traffic doesn't need to stop completely.
Right.
And even in moderate traffic, it can flow through easily and continuously.
He's right. In the U.S., there's some areas where it's like it seems like every 5 seconds there's a stop sign. You stop, and then you go, and then you stop, and then you go, and then you stop. It's really annoying. It's an annoying way to drive. It doesn't even feel like you're driving. And then, especially, I am one of the few Americans that does daily drive a manual transmission. And so when I'm driving my car in a manual, it is really annoying to stop every 5 seconds and go through first, second, third. All right, stop. First, second, third, right? It's annoying.
Like this, which means no stopping, priority road, or dead end. Americans, for some reason, are using words or even sentences, even if many Spanish immigrants.
Yeah, look at the amount of words on this. Holy smokes! Of course, this works if you know English, right? But there's the problem. America prides itself on having like a billion different cultures here, right? Diversity. People from all over the world coming here. So many people here. So why on earth is all the signs in just English rather than a lot of symbols that could be universally understood? I know that's what he's going to say. This makes perfect sense that throughout Europe, you mostly rely on symbols, right? Signs that have symbols that anyone can understand, whether or not you speak English, right? So that is a very good point, and this is a weak point in the U.S. with the signs with just filled with words. It's actually kind of weird. Something I never thought about until thought-provoking videos like this. It is weird seeing all the words. It's actually kind of bizarre. Like, where are the symbols? Especially when Spanish, for one, is like extremely widely spoken here. It's literally our second language. And then there's tons of other languages as well mixed in. What about those people? What about someone that doesn't primarily speak English or doesn't know it that well? How are they reading this? Isn't it kind of a danger, them on the road, not being able to see where they're at and them kind of getting confused and maybe, stopping or getting off in the wrong place? Yeah, it is weird. U.S., I would love an official explanation on
Immigrants
this.
don't speak English.
It's weird.
I find it really ridiculous that there are no universal standard traffic signs.
Agreed.
But they are still communicating with road users in this way.
Yeah.
It can slow down the traffic
Even
and
on
make
school
it more
buses,
dangerous
yeah.
as you need to read the whole thing instead of
Like, look at this. This is actually, like, some of these, the way they're set up, too, isn't the greatest. Like, these are confusing. If you're in a hurry, like, if you're in a heavy traffic scenario and you're moving and, like, I glance over and see this, like, I may be confused by some of these signs because you're trying to read so much at once. It's like, dude, if these are confusing for English speakers, imagine how confusing it'd be for someone that isn't confident in their English. Like, that's not
just
good.
quickly looking at the sign. Number
I admit,
9.
that's a problem.
The
That's a
traffic
problem.
doesn't keep right. Here in the EU, you are obliged to keep right in multi-lane roads,
Yes.
especially on the highway.
I guess I'm going to call myself a decent driver. I think I'm a good driver. I do subscribe to this. I always keep right. That's how you're supposed to do it, especially on the highway. You keep right. If you are going to pass and you get in the left, and then you resume back to the right lane. It's how everyone should be. Here in the U.S., maybe 1 out of 10 people think like me and stay in the right like you're supposed to. Meanwhile, there's people everywhere, just 3-4 lane wide highways. We have huge highways, and there's just people scattered throughout. It's like a mess, man. If everyone was in the right and then passed a little bit to the left and then got back to the right, it would flow much better and it'd be safer. Dude, people are all over the place here, and it does create problems.
Faster traffic can easily pass through lower speed traffic.
Yes.
In the US, everybody can go in the...
We have someone going slow because they have an overloaded truck bed here, and they're in the middle freaking lane. Like, what is happening there? Then we have people going all different speeds. You have people left lane lounging, which I absolutely hate and is super dangerous. But there's people that do it all the time. They go under the speed limit in the left lane, which is supposed to be the fast lane. Yeah, don't get me going here. I'm sorry, I don't want to go on a rant.
They want, which can create
bad.
Potentially dangerous situations on the road. On the other hand, I understand why this is happening in this way. In Europe, if you want to exit from the highway, in almost all cases, you have to leave to the right. In the US, due to these complex and not necessarily well-designed intersections, you can also leave or change highways to the left.
That's true.
From the left lane.
In certain instances, that's true.
Unexpected traffic jams can happen almost any time in the US, and travel times can vary significantly along the road. One memorable case was when we were at the Valley of Fire State Park in Nevada.
Look at that. That is beautiful. US does have beauty, though. Got to say that.
We tried to reach the Hoover Dam
Nothing like the
before
deserts
sunset.
over here, man.
This would have been completely feasible. Google said 90 minutes through Las Vegas, 100 minutes through the desert. We arrived half hour before sunset. Great. We chose the first option. As it turned out 1 hour later, this was a bad idea.
Oh no.
As we traveled, our ETA was extending constantly, minute by minute. When the sun set, we were still in traffic in the middle of Las Vegas.
Oh no.
As I mentioned before, highways go through the cities and not around them.
That's true.
Thanks to your terribly engineered traffic system.
I mean, sometimes you can find spur routes that go around, but you got to be aware of that, and sometimes it's not available. There's always construction. It is a mess. So trying to go around a city sometimes doesn't work. So then you have to go through a big city like Las Vegas, and you get stuck. It can be very frustrating on a road trip.
We missed the daylight hours, we missed the sunset, and we arrived to the dam in complete darkness.
Oh, no.
I wasn't happy, I can say that. Learning point? Don't trust Google. Trust your instincts.
Yes.
If there are options to choose traveling A to B, stick to the roads which are going through on less populated areas.
Yes, great tip. Especially in the U.S. Don't trust Google Maps. I could do a whole video. I should someday. I could do a whole video on personal experiences or, I guess horror stories with Google Maps. When, my wife and kids and I have gone on road trips, we have had some really bad experiences with Google Maps, suggesting extremely weird and just bad routes that have gotten us into a lot of delays and quite frankly, some trouble. Like, it's just like, what is this doing? Let's just say, without telling the story, Google Maps has basically said, nope, let's not take the highway around this area. Let's take the highway and get off on this weird road and lead you to like a secret army base in the desert in New Mexico. Yes, that has happened to us. So that's the extent of what Google Maps has done. It's very sketchy and doesn't point you in the right direction all the time. So trust your instincts.
There are limited bike lanes in the US. I can hardly see anyone cycling. What I find awkward is that people go to the gym by car, of course, to use those stationary bikes instead of just cycling. Crazy, right? Bike lane infrastructure is very mixed in the EU.
Look, that could make sense if you're in a really cold state up north. And look, if it's like, freezing cold out, you don't want to bike in that. Most people don't, right? So that makes sense. If you have to drive to the gym, then you do your biking at the gym. But look, I know most of the year, especially if it's nice out, it is kind of weird, right? Driving to the gym and then going to ride a bike stationary inside of the gym. Maybe you could just take a bike out in nature, get some fresh air, right? The funny thing is, He's right. Not many people cycle. You rarely, if I go out and drive right now, I could go out and take an hour-long drive, and I'd be lucky if I saw one person on a bicycle. I'm not kidding. It's super rare. And if anything, you go to certain areas where it maybe is a little better set up for it. People just cycle for recreation only, right? They don't actually cycle to, for transportation, to get to work, to go to the store, that type of thing. That just really doesn't exist here. If anything, the very minimum cycling there is just for recreation, which is so bizarre, I bet, for certain people watching this, especially if you're, throughout Europe. I bet that's bizarre to hear because a lot of people probably cycle every day and it's functional, right?
However, you can almost always find some people cycling. In the US, as a more popular
look at all the
option,
bikes. We've seen so many bikes in this short clip, right? You're never going to see that in the US.
Many people
never.
use electric scooters, which are just becoming more widespread in the EU too.
Yes.
Number 6.
I will say that. He's right. In cities, electric scooters like Birds, or there's a couple other brands, you unlock it with your phone, like an app, you pay for it, and then you go ride it around. I have done it myself. I do like it, and I don't say it, I don't do it every day, but I have done it, and I do think it's pretty cool, and it has made a killing lately in the U.S. If we're talking about maybe the last 5 years, I would say it's really gone up. Electric scooters are gaining popularity.
Gas stations in the US, you have to pay first and then fuel.
That's right.
In the EU, you are allowed to fuel first and then pay the bill.
That is just unthinkable here. That's unthinkable.
However, it varies country to country.
Dude, gas theft would be through the roof.
Number 10.
That was
the traffic light is on the other side of the road in the US, which has pros and cons. It has better visibility. However, if you are turning, it can be misleading, as you might think that you are going through a red light. In the EU, you will find the traffic light before the intersections and not after.
What?
Number 11.
Whoa. I didn't know that. First of all, what kind of car is that? That's pretty sleek, dude. Second of all, damn, this is like a nice area. Wait, the traffic light is like next to you? How do you see it? So you come up to an intersection. Let's see. How do I do this? Okay, here's my hand. You come up to the intersection, and the traffic light is right here on top of you? It's not like across the way over here? I'm sorry, I don't understand that. I guess I'd have to experience it firsthand. That just sounds odd to me. How do you, if you're coming up to the intersection, the light is not across the intersection, but rather it's right there, how do you even see it? I'm going with the US way on that one. What do you prefer? Am I overthinking this? I feel like that doesn't make sense, having it right next to you. I don't know. We're going to end it on that one. Look, there were lots of points in these videos. These were very well done. Make sure to check out the links down there so you can check all of these, because there were ones we did not cover here. But what did you think of those? I can't wait to see the comment section on this, to see your input. Like I always say, I cannot wait to travel and see Europe someday. Multiple places, multiple countries, and driving there is going to be interesting. I'm going to be a little freaked out at first. Not freaked out. That's an overstatement. I'm going to be a little nervous, just because I want to do good and I want to be safe, and driving in a new place would just be different, right? Different rules, different cars, different roads, different infrastructure. But you know what? I do look forward to it, and I think it's really interesting to see these differences of videos. And what are some things you like and dislike about certain places in the EU, about how the traffic flow works? Or, if you've been to the U.S., what are some things maybe you did like about the U.S. traffic and the roads, and what are some things you dislike that maybe weren't even covered here? I would love to hear about it down below. Please throw a like on there if you enjoyed this and learned something. Subscribe to be part of this amazing community we do have here. We do have a join button. Click that. Check it out. It's only 99 cents. Support the channel with some cool badges and emotes and stuff. Look, my name is Ian. You're watching IWrocker, and until next time, y'all, I'll catch you later.